Did it tell you that it started recording? Yes, it started recording. Okay, cool. So let me just share my screen now. Yep. So let's begin. I think first of all, a very warm welcome to everybody who's come in today, and I'm very excited that we have for the first time we have people from the community presenting on Zingg and what the experiences have been. So and in terms of, I think just things getting better, things are really. I think the word of mouth is really working. We've got a lot of love. We're getting a lot of love from the community. Last 1 year, it's almost 1 year now since we open source Zing, and now I think a lot more people are kind of joining in the Slack, giving us stars and using Zing, which feels honestly it feels very good. Now, for the community today, I just wanted to have a quick glance of where we are with Zing. What are some things that you can do today with Zing? And then do presentations by Jerome and Jimmy, who've been very actively using Zing and who've been kind enough to prepare something to show to all of us here. And then we'll follow it up with an open house and just go around and see what everybody is up to. So, right, so I think let's start with just the recent release that we did, which I personally felt was a real big change to the way we have been exposing Zing. We've been working with Zing. So earlier Zing was all command line, it's still command line, but yes, all JSON and all the configuration had to go in there. And few people were complaining about having to configure everything through a JSON. And I think the problem also was that the ability to weave Zing into larger workflows was getting difficult. So keeping in mind that we wanted to have integrations with DBT, with better integrations with Databricks, and also to give the community a chance to work with Zing in a way that they're most familiar with, we've released the Python interface recently. And it's a whole programmatic way to actually work with Zing, where you can configure your field definitions, you can configure your input and your output, you can configure where you want the model to be. And it rides on the Zing Spark interface. So the installation of the Docker is still necessary. It's not like a normal Python program, but it still goes a long way in which these programs around Zing can actually be stitched together. So I hope some of you have tried it. We've got some feedback already, and I hope more of you would try it and let us know how you feel about it. Another big thing that we've released, and I feel personally this is very important in terms of entity resolution, is stop words. Stop words are words that we want to ignore, which do not really add meaning to the column. So common words like LLP, LLC, limited liability, these are words which occur, but they occur so many times in so many rows that they actually do not really help with matching those columns. And what we have with Zing is that we have now a way in which these stop words can be recommended by Zing. You can run a phase where it will recommend the stop words on the columns, and then the human can actually choose which stop words that they want to configure per column. So essentially, I mean, the way we look at Zing is that the AI should actually aid humans to make better decisions. And with stop words, we've not taken a completely automated way of, just internally just figuring out what are the stop words and just choosing them. We are giving the control to the end user to see which words really make sense in their domain. And the bigger list can be generated through Zing, so they don't have to really do the manual work. And we've also released a lot of match types. I hope some of you had a look at that. We've got emails, we've got PIN codes, we've got multiple match types which can now be associated with a single column. And we feel those kind of combinations like alphanumeric and numeric. So if you have a long string and you also want a way in which you just want to just look at like the string in totality, but also the numbers within that string. So it's like, addresses typically have house numbers. So you want to also have a feature which can look at that. The alphanumeric types help you there. And some of the partially populated fields also, we've introduced something called is null or blank, and that should help. Sorry, I think somebody's just come in, so let me. Yep. So in terms of, I think the other stuff that we've done is that although Zing, we had started with this pipe abstraction where you could put in any kind of data in anything that had a Spark connector. In the code, we kind of left some lingering issues where it wasn't that seamless to just connect anything that had a Spark connector. And we've cleaned up that part, and the generic read and write pipes can now actually just, you should be able to just configure almost everything that has a Spark connector. For some reason, my page tab has stopped working. And in terms of the other useful things we've done, we've worked on, just a smaller jar, because when you are downloading on some other environments like EMR or on Databricks, the other earlier fat jar was like a few minutes of download. So we wanted to shave that off. We've tried to get better at error messages, but yeah, that will always be a like a long kind of path, and we'll continue to work on that. We've added a lot of blocking functions for the numeric types. Earlier, we were like, I think we predominantly have been seeing most people matching on strings, and we've introduced in this release the numeric types as well. And we had complaints about people looking at our code and saying there's not enough unit testing. Honestly, we have been testing a lot of the code. I feel personally it's fairly robust, and if you look at people using it, there are not very often that people report bugs and issues. But at the same time, there is definitely that importance of J units that somehow we had, not done a great job at, and we're trying really hard to get better and better at that. So in terms of, I think, the community, I mean, all of you are a great part of it, and I'm very happy to say that, we are like really crossing 580 stars now on GitHub. We have almost 195 members on Slack, and we have members from, really data intensive companies as well as data platform providers, which kind of reiterates the importance of this problem in the broader ecosystem. And something that came out recently, we're very excited about this. This is a solution accelerator contributed by Databricks. It's available on their GitHub as a solution accelerator. So anybody can actually, who's on Databricks or who wants a managed Spark environment to use with Zing, can just download and start using this. Luke, who's just joined in, has been hard at work at doing this. So hats off to him for building this out and, getting this published within Databricks. And I think what we have seen is that it just came out I think the first week of August or a bit later, And within 2 to 3 weeks of this coming out, we've had, so August 4 is, yes, the announcement here. And within like these 3-4 weeks, we've had almost 100 million records, entities actually resolved through Zingg already, using the solution accelerator. So just a moment to, be happy about the kind of love we are getting. I wanted to share it with all of you who've actually really boosted, our morale in terms of how things were. And really, really thankful for all the love and support. I think some people have tried the Python API and they're really liking it. And I think one result that I really wanted to highlight here is that, when we started with Zingg, I personally had, just to test out the algorithms, we had gone from those 65 records in February to those 120K records to 500,000. And then eventually we did 4, 5 million, and 15 million was the maximum I had personally run on Zingg. And now what we've seen is with the solution accelerator on Databricks, David here has reported very good results with 15 million. And in fact, his team and he went ahead and did first 33 million and then 70 million records using Zingg. So 70 million is like completely something that we had not imagined would run that smooth. But I think it worked in a reasonable amount of time, almost took 7 hours for them. So pretty happy about that. So I think that was pretty much what I wanted to share at my end. And I would like to first invite Jerome, who's been who's a senior enterprise data architect and who's been really cooking up some very interesting stuff with Zingg. And after Jerome, we'll have Jimmy, who will present his case study. He works at Crossroads CX. So over to you, Jerome, and let me maybe give you a way to share your screen.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you, everyone. Just to let you know, I'm in a car because at this time it's a busy time for me with the kids. Personal life, sorry about that. But I'm able to share my screen now, and I'm able to present to you what I've been able to do with Zingg. And here we go. I'm going to remove my beautiful face from your screen right now. And you can see my screen. Yeah. So here we go. It's funny because Sonal just expressed the fact that Databricks works, that Zingg and Databricks works together and doing some customer 360, and I'm going to show you something related to that. So I'm a bit familiar with entity resolution. I've been doing myself some customer 360 projects, and I want to share more a business side of things rather than technical. And of course, I'm going to share some technical things as well. So let's start with that right now. Customer 360 for 10, 12 minutes, I hope. So I'm sure you know what Customer 360 is, but a little reminder is never bad. And so Customer 360 provides a trusted single view of customers, and what we call customers can vary depending on verticals in industries or companies. But mainly you always have a name, an address, a telephone number, a gender, some information that are related to a business. And of course, it looks like it's a technical problem to solve, which is to say, if you have different names that are related to the same person, let's give an example like Peter Simpson, for instance. It can be tricky to link all the Peter Simpson together. It's a technical problem, but mostly it is a huge business problem for all companies. And even if a lot of companies have put a lot of effort in that, it is still a challenge. So just two examples. It is important for banks because in terms of regulation, such as BCBS regulations, it is mandatory now to be able, when you're a bank, to present files that show that you have a customer 360 perspective. It is important because if you have different Peter Simpson in the bank as a client, you have to know that Peter Simpson one, who basically lent borrowed from the bank 1 million, another Peter Simpson two borrowed 2 million, another one borrowed 3 million. You have to understand that it's not 1, 2, and 3 million separately, but it's 6 million, which makes an exposure at risk for this particular customer. So it's also very helpful when you do fraud detection or money laundering, and you're able to connect the people, less people because they are connected to as a single customer. It really helps to make the connection and to detect frauds. For a company which sell goods, it's also very interesting to better target their offer in the area of marketing. You don't want to sell alcohol advertisement to kids, for instance. You may laugh at that, but it happened in the past. And if you know better your customers as well, you can enhance your cross-sell opportunities. So the customer 360, knowing your customer, will differ from verticals, from industries. They'll never be the same use case, the exact same use case, but they are doing the same thing, which is to link rows together into a single entity. So basically here, I'm going to show you what I've been dealing with Zingg. So I had 8 data sources. They represent something around 227,000 transactions. In each transaction, there is a spent amount and also a name, an address for the customer. The usual attributes, usual suspects like full name, first, last name, date of birth, phone, the street address, stuff like that. And here, I basically installed Zingg on my computer using the Docker, and I was able to manage this volume of data very easily, and I was pretty surprised. And what you're looking at the moment here is before Zingg. It's the perspective from the data. You take all the names you have and you put this bar graph by spend, summing all the transaction for instance, if you follow my mouse here, Tammy Turner, and who spent something like more than 2.5K. If you see here that Jack Perkins, Jessica Rice, oh, wait a minute, another Tammy Turner in the same town, which is Oxnard. Well, there's some chance that this is the same Tammy Turner. And you see here, there is a spelling mistake, probably. And basically here, what you're going to see is that we have a Susan Miller here, and there's spelling mistake in her name or different names or nicknames. She might have changed her address. There are some people who live in the same household. Well, actually here, what you're looking at are the true data, but what you see is not the truth because the customer 360 is not applied here. It's just raw data. And if we apply Zingg on top of this data, this is what is happening. You see on the left side, this is before Zingg. This is the thing we've seen. And here is after Zingg, after the entity resolution. First, look at here. There's a scale here, and we have another scale here. It's very interesting because if you are a company, you say, well, wait a minute, I saw Tammy Turner spend this amount of money, and actually it's more than 4,000. And Susan Miller, she moved from 1.5K to 2.5K. So here it's a small scale in terms of amount, but if you think here, it's 30% more, 30% more amount for Tammy Turner. Think about suppliers. Think about large amounts. If you move from 10 million to 13 million or maybe more, you see, there is a business perspective here. For a company that sells goods, this is very important to know better how much people have basically spent with them. So I'm going to show you quickly how things were made into a notebook. And here I'm just showing data. You see here I'm having this city Oxnard, and this is what we were looking at. You see here now we have Tammy Turner with 4.3 thousand and Susan Miller here. So what happened to those guys? Here, if I'm showing Susan here, you're going to see that actually here, uh, I'm going to show Susan. I didn't see that was not Susan. Here, if I'm showing Susan, there was two Susan at the beginning, two Susan Miller. If I'm showing Susan with Zingg, what's going to happen is this. Okay, we now have four records. I'm not showing you the cases where we have 20 records together, but because I want things to be simple here. But you see, her name is Suze Miller. We might have Susie Miller sometime. The address is the same. It is definitely the same person. The only thing is different way of writing the address. So it's a very simple case here. But Zingg put them together, and it makes a change. Here also, if I'm looking at Tammy Turner, same name. Oh no, there's Tammy IE and Tammy Y. The address is the same. We have little glitches here, points appeared sometimes, but basically the same address. And boom, this is pretty cool because we have here the same person and now in a single cluster. So all those little differences, we can't catch them with a simple group by in SQL. We need Zingg for that. And here, if I'm going just a little bit here, and I'm looking for all the cities, so an aggregation of all the data I have here, this is the difference we have. So before Zingg, we have amounts like 5K here, and here it's 8K for spend. So having a complete different perspective here, and the names are totally different. This is not the same top 10 we have from before Zingg and after Zingg. And just something I wanted to figure out. There's another guy I haven't shown here. It's a guy I call Bob Stokes. And Bob Stokes is funny because Bob Stokes, it has a lot of issues in its name, or sometimes his address is not complete. There is a zero instead of an O, etc. And which makes it a bit complex to find this guy. But Bob Stokes, same date of birth, different addresses, some is missing, different email for this case, and however, you see Zingg was able to put them together. So this is a very interesting case, and maybe later I'll be doing another presentation on how to match together things that are not very related. Just to come back on my presentation, and I will end there. We've seen here some data that are pretty funny actually, and the question is how we do that. Well, I only answered 80 questions, and I want to emphasize one thing. My expertise was key. I might be wrong, right? In what my expertise might be wrong, but I want to say that the expertise is very important. You won't have the same expertise depending on the use case. Think about quality matching in banks and a marketplace. Their answers will be different. So there is the same use case, but of course, different results depending on the requirements. That's really important to think about. And I would say one thing is target business first. This is really what we want. I'd like to see with customer 360 rather than technical problems, because business is definitely interested in getting data all together. Having data linked together, that's great, beautiful data and great data, that's funny, that's good, but what else? So what, basically? And it has to provide value to the business. So if Zingg can be successful, is I think through business. And last point, just to finish, I'm a data architect for large enterprises, and combination of Zingg and new technologies are very disruptive for old companies. And of course, we are talking about Snowflake, Databricks, but if you think about banks, it's still a challenge for them. And Zingg has to find its own place in their ecosystem because Zing is disruptive for these companies. So there's a lot of effort to bring to make things pretty clear for those banks and those companies to use freely and easily Zing. That was me. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I get back to you, Sonal.
Yeah, so thank you so much. This is awesome. I think this is probably the first time or the second time I'm seeing somebody else presenting instead of
Ah,
me. So, and this was lovely. I mean, I think just the way you highlighted the differences, and I'm glad that you were able to find those differences also. So
yeah,
that's a great job.
it was pretty easy through the visuals. We can see that at a glance. But I have to emphasize that I didn't put much work. It was my first try, and honestly, I was pretty impressed by the way Zing put things together with a very small amount of expertise from me. So that's pretty great.
Thank you so much. I hope you continue
Yeah,
exposing more and more stuff, and yeah, we look at. I think we look at more from you from there.
thank you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Jerome. And I think now it's time for Jimmy Steinmetz. Jimmy.
Hey there, how's it going?
Hey. Yeah. Would you
Uh, yeah,
like
I
to?
can share. First, Jerome, that was a great presentation. Great to see how you're using it. Um, I got some similar points. I've got some different points, so hopefully these complement each other pretty well. Although I guess I will say, and can you all see the presentation?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I will say I was talking to Chris kind of at the beginning, Sonal, when you were showing the new updates as of the latest version, and I feel like half of my presentation I just throw out and I just upgrade to the new version. It'll get fixed. So if you want to see how to do it before all of these wonderful new features, I've got the presentation for you. But anyway, sorry, I'll set it up a little bit. So a nonprofit in North Carolina approached us to open source campaign finance data in North Carolina. And so the data is publicly available by the loosest definition. It's not very easy to access. So we're building this platform so that anybody can kind of go and get a better idea of where money is flowing within the state of North Carolina. We very quickly realized one of the issues here is a lot of human entered data, which by nature makes it very messy. So we started seeing a lot of similarly named entities that were donating or receiving donations, and we wanted to clean those up. And that was actually an issue with people we had spoken with who had tried to do this in the past. They just said, this particular aspect, the entity resolution aspect, was just too much of a bear to be able to successfully pull off a project like this. So with Sonal and Zing's help, we've been able to be able to accomplish that. So it's been a great experience so far. So just as an example, we're looking at this new Belgian brewing company, which has an official STA number. That means that it has like an official registered political action committee in North Carolina that they submit their expenses and their receipts for every quarter or whatever it is. But other people are donating to them as well, and we want to match it up when any of these individual entities are popping up. And so, we all on the call can see that these are all very clearly the same thing. It's not machine readable, so that's where Zing comes in, and so you can see all of those entities that we identified before. And I'm not just doing this on name. This is also on on address, on city, on a number of fields as well. But you can see here where it kind of all wraps it up into this one matched name, which is the goal, right? So just a little bit about how we've deployed it. The data is all sitting on a Snowflake instance. I've got an EMR instance that I spin up whenever I'm running these functions. It goes, grabs data from Snowflake, and then does the Zingg magic, as we've all seen, in order to yield kind of an output like this. And I have the dashboard that it's all going to kind of end up in, and I've got that pulled up, and I can show that towards the end here. But we did also have a few bumps along the way, and this is kind of where I was talking about with the new update helps a ton here. But this one actually, I guess, is a little bit different. So we've got NC Home Builders Association and North Carolina Home Builders Association. Again, very clearly the same thing, but NC and North Carolina, those are for a non-human. It's kind of hard to make that association. Same thing here with Chris, who is on the call as well. I didn't want to take a screenshot of somebody's name that I don't know. But this is kind of emblematic of an issue that's kind of we run into where, obviously, again, these are all the same people, assuming that they have the same address, but they're spelled very differently. Having a middle initial or a middle name kind of throws it off. So we had to, and we only had full names. It was not nicely delineated into the first, middle, last name. So a couple of ways that we solved for these was within Snowflake, I used some user-defined functions where anytime it sees NC, it actually replaces it with North Carolina. And I have a big list of replacement words. DEC is the Democratic Party, REC is Republican Party, all those sorts of things. So I've got that as kind of one of many cleaning functions that I built into my process before sending that data to Zingg. Similarly with the name, we use this Python library called name parser, which is super simple to use. You just feed it names and it spits back at you title, first, middle, last, suffix, and then I think one other thing, but it very clearly breaks it into it. And then Zingg is going to be much better at identifying, especially these first two, Chris M. Burke and Chris Burke. It's going to be closer. So those were kind of two of the larger ones that we worked out. Another issue that I ran into was, so we have, I think we have 50 million transactions in our database, but we don't have to do every transaction because it's from a named entity, and so I reduced it down to the actual number of organizations. So it's about 500,000. No, I'm sorry. I think it's about 500,000 organizations. And we've gotten it down to that list of unique donors or recipients of funds. But I still had to have a way to map those kind of back to the individual transactions. So what I did was I gave every transaction a transaction ID. I concatenated all of those together so that all these individual organization names had associations with each transaction, and then this here is me repivoting that out and identifying like a master name. So, what is the best name to use for this particular cluster, and that's kind of what's going on here. So that if we go back to like this New Belgium Brewing Company, that's how this was selected, was via that little Snowflake script after the fact. So that's what we got there. We've got these results. You can see, constant contact, same name, different address. GoDaddy, same deal, similar to Jerome's there. So again, just showing kind of the power of what Zingg can do. And then as far as our roadmap, kind of what we're doing going forward, I am trying to automate a lot of these external pieces. I do think upgrading to the latest version will help me with a number of those. But we still have things where, as new data comes in, we've built a data pipeline that goes and picks up that data, pushes it through that entire process. That's not entirely scripted yet, but that's the goal there. Once we get North Carolina solid, we would like to expand to other cities, other states. we think this is important work to be doing, and every state obviously has campaign finance, so we would like to expand in that way, and then just kind of clean up and partnerships. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and I believe that's the end of the presentation. But just to show you where the actual data is looking, or how the data is looking, you can see here we've got, you know, who's spending money. You know, you can click and see, you know, for Democratic Action, for example, you can see when they spent it, who they spent it with. You can jump over to the donors if you want to look at it from the other way, who's receiving money, and where is that money coming from. If I wanted to look at an individual organization like Cooper for North Carolina here, I can go over into my organizational level results if it wants to load for me, and it does. And then I can see by year, what are they spending, what are they receiving. This is some average receipts for them versus the rest of the state. You know, you can all go and see all the different top expenditures that are in here. It's top donors. And then the last page is just a transaction explorer. So if you wanted to, for example, you know, somebody wants to go and find anybody who is in a certain profession, it's got to think about it for a little bit. If I wanted to find any donations from attorneys, for example, I could go and I could find who's donating, where it's going, you know, when it was donated, all those sorts of things. So it ends up being a pretty powerful tool. And again, our goal is just to have transparency and have this data easily accessible to everyone. So this isn't prime time yet, but eventually this will be published publicly. And then we have a few other ways that we're distributing the data through an API, through open source visualizations. This is in Tableau, which is a proprietary tool, but open source visualizations as well. We're just trying to get it out to the masses. And then all of this, everything that we've done, we're also putting on GitHub. So if somebody did want to go and replicate what we've done for another state, they could just go kind of look at the repository. They'd have to do some mapping and some other kind of lifting, but it's largely there. So that's our goal. But Sonal, that's all I got. Any questions for me? Anything you want me to look further at, or?
Wow, I mean, I think this is I obviously knew about this, but I had not seen it end to end. So this is very cool, Jimmy. And so you're doing donor as well as a recipient, right? Are you doing both?
We're doing what? Sorry, what was the question?
Are you doing donor as well as recipient, or?
Yeah. So the way that these records are structured, although this isn't probably going to give a great. So a committee files let's just pick a committee here. A committee files a report every quarter for donations that they receive, and they just list out and they say, okay, this name of this person, sure. Paragon Bank, for example, donated to this particular committee in, you know, whatever the date is. And so what I'm actually doing is I'm pulling this data, the committee name, and I'm unioning it with these names so that I can get kind of a holistic picture of everything. And then they are all tagged either as a receipt or an expenditure. Oh, I say they're all tagged. They're meant to be all tagged as a receipt or expenditure. Maybe we'll get some. Nope, there we go. All right. For this one here, you can see it's either an expenditure or receipt. So we're looking at everything.
Okay. Wow.
That's been reported since 2016. Is we secured a grant to fund the development of this, and the grant was time boxed to 2016 until now. Our next step is to go out and find another grant in order to go back even further and, you know, improve the data and hopefully improve the models that are yielding all of these results in Zingg.
Wow, good luck with that. Yeah, so this is very good. I think Luke also had a question. Luke, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Hey, Jimmy. This is awesome. Really good. Have you had to deal with questions about accuracy, like precision recall? And if so, have you thought about, assuming there's not really an answer key in this data set, how to go about that?
Sure. We haven't, because this has only kind of been shared internally. I mean, I guess we have, like everybody says, how is it? And so I've tried to expose again internally. Let's take a look at these names and compare those to the original names, and here are the scores and everything. What I did was I created, and I actually have this in here somewhere. I created a threshold that says, don't take any matches that are below a certain, Z min score or Z max score, and that's a fairly high bar. I believe it's 80 or a 0.8 match. And so largely we've seen that it's pretty accurate, but as I said, it's a 25 million or 50 million transactions, and it's 500,000 organizations. So we haven't looked at all of them just yet.
Oh, it's impossible to look at all of them. But yeah, I just didn't know if you'd come up with some kind of like statistical sampling approach to estimate, or it's something that comes up from time to time.
Yeah, I'm sure we will get many different kinds of questions once this goes live. But it's better than what's out there at the moment, which is
No, this is great. Well done.
Not a great utility. No, appreciate it. I also like the Databricks connector. I'm working on getting into it, but turns out a lot of projects going on.
I didn't ask about that, man. No worries. It looks great.
No, but it's a cool, like Databricks itself is a cool technology that I'm interested in learning about, and so this seems like a good entry point because I've got experience on the other side doing it external to that. So anyway.
Anybody else has a question for Jimmy or?
Cool.
Right. So I think that's pretty much what we had in mind for today. And right now, I just wanted to have like a very open kind of a freewheeling discussion. Anybody wants to have questions or struggling with Zingg or any feedback, would love to hear more from what we can do better. Anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, I might have a little questions. Basically, here we have entity resolution, the entity resolution use cases that we know about, Customer 360, and here it's a bit different with Jimmy. It's you can see that's a proper use case that a company can struggle with without entity resolution, machine learning or stuff. Are there other use cases that you met during your experience with Zingg? I mean by that, other than customer or supplier, untypical use cases where Zingg can help.
So that's an interesting question. Actually, when this idea of open sourcing Zingg came, I think a lot of people would talk about master data management associated with Zingg. And what I see also increasingly happening is that definitely, I mean, we have a strong, connect in terms of the MDM space where it's master data, customer 360 kind of scenarios. But we also see, usages across 2-3 things that I'm very excited about. One is the customer data platform, the whole marketing tech space, which is in some senses it is customer 360, but it's more geared towards the MarTech kind of solutions where people are building on Snowflake or they're building on a warehouse, and they are, instead of choosing an external CDP kind of a technology to build out their identity of the customer. They are looking at using Zingg to do that. Another use case that somebody came up to me very recently, I had a discussion this week itself, was around privacy, which is subject access requests from people in terms of, I think, CCPA and GDPR, and where Zingg can play a role in unifying the data and quickly addressing where the data is and how it can be actually be erased. So if you have a view of actually, where those core entities are, where are they saved, where is the customer data actually located, if you can join it through Zingg, you can actually address those SAR, those requests very smoothly. So, so those are, I think, some very different use cases from a very traditional supplier 360, customer 360 kind of use cases that we have seen. I think as we talk to more and more people, we talk about enriching your sales force with LinkedIn data. Open source companies talking about the first time somebody logged and a company logged issues on GitHub, and eventually liking their feed on LinkedIn, and then eventually turning into a paid customer. So a different kind of a customer 360, not a like a B2B kind of a customer 360, but yes, those are different kinds of use cases that we see people working with Zingg.
So I have a comment on things that maybe we could do. Actually, it's with the theme of what Jerome started with, and then also kind of shared with what Jimmy displayed, which is some of the most impactful bits of this is the business impact. So the tools are great. I think all of us are bought in. The tool of Zingg is great. And then me being in kind of the sales side, I'm constantly trying to show why. And so if we have ideas of how to not just do Zingg, but to show why it's effective, what is summarizing what it's done for you, visualizing something, maybe canned reports of like how well it compressed the data, so that it's not on the engineer or someone to go interpret the results for a data analyst. What Jimmy put together is amazing, but I don't think Zingg is going to put that together as a default thing. But just intro level basics would be potentially helpful, and it could be really basic, just like really basic statistics on how much got compressed. And the other thing that came up, that's kind of one side. The other thing, actually, this came up probably 3 different times in the last couple of weeks as I've been showing Zingg to colleagues. The concept of knowing what to do after the clusters are created. Like there's this step where, at least in my example, where it's like, all right, we have clusters, but like, how do you validate them? Like you don't have an answer key. Which ones are weird? Why are they weird? And some advice or help on what it means to review those, even if it means like something I didn't think about. So now, but you have that Zingg min and Zingg max score, and that can help you understand the topology of a cluster,
Yes.
like a long chain or a black hole. And like we could maybe put in a really simple diagram of a single cluster that kind of shows what the nodes look like in that graph, and you could see, is it a chain? Is it visually? Is it a couple clumps? And as long as you're only doing 1 or 2, it's probably not so hard to do. You probably don't even need any big package to do it. So those are things that have been bouncing around, and people are thinking about trying that out on my side too. But those are things I think could help adoption. Just people seeing it and be like, oh, that's what's happening. And
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, so that's a great idea, Luke. In fact, a lot of great ideas in those few sentences of yours. Yeah, let me also touch base with you offline and get more of your views here. I think yes, this is good in terms of maybe just statistics in terms of how many records did we have, how many clusters are we building, what is the quality of the clusters, like do they have like a big variation between the min and the max score? Maybe those are the ones you can start looking at first. Yeah, those are, I think, great ideas. Stuff to.
And you already have the interactive thing going. So you could be like, do you want to review weird clusters? And you say yes, and you're like, here's a weird cluster. Does it look good? And you're like, yeah or no. And then you can you just build off your interactive
I see,
setup.
yeah.
It's kind of like built in, ready to go on that too. Just
right.
so many different ways you could take this.
Yeah. That's great advice. Actually, wonderful feedback. I think, yeah, and I'm really definitely going to borrow from what Jimmy and Jerome have shown today. Yeah, I think honestly, after the last release, I'm not really coded much. Time for some action, I guess. Yeah. So, do we have?
Just a little thing here. I experienced in the past a large enterprise who they were dealing with their suppliers, and they had the beginning 500,000 suppliers, which is huge for any company. And they wondered how they could trust their software, and they ended up with a, a virtual a cycle that was constantly measuring specific metrics that they ended by trusting. So what I mean here is that they decided to say, well, let's take a certain number of clusters, let's review them manually, and based on that, they had an empirical approach, which was to say, if we have this metric and this metric with this threshold, we can trust it, and we can trust all the others and untrust the ones that are not. And so they were bringing more and more training, and the more training they were doing, the more the more the thresholds were well, the more the metrics were meeting the thresholds, and that was one way, is to that was their way, and they were happy with that. So I don't know if it helps in this perspective, but I think metrics can really help. It has to be a metric, maybe depending on each use case. I don't know, but something that can help the users to trust the results, because you don't know, you can't watch them, all
Yeah.
of them possible.
Okay.
Maybe something like that could be useful as well. I don't know, putting together statistical values around the Z min and Z max, and see what is validated and accepted by the users, and then go from there.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a plan. I think that's something not. Yeah, I think if we put our heads together, probably connect with a few users on really how they are, consuming the end results, and really what is the first reaction. I think we should be able to get there. Should not be really very difficult to put together, but I completely get your point. I think it also shows really, like as like right, you were mentioning, both of you I think mentioned that this is the initial size of records you came in with, and this is the final set of clusters that you ended up with, and then what is the statistical thing. Yeah, we can do that. Those are good suggestions. Great.
Just one point, because I had that in mind when I used Zingg. I wanted to look at all I don't know what the name you gave them, but the fuzzy, the zip code, the email, all those kind of matching topic, let's say. And so I worked for the Red Cross, and at Red Cross we have a problem. The problem is that you have 40 different spellings of Mohammed in the world, so it makes things a bit difficult. Even fuzzy things doesn't help, and they were using a metaphone matching thing, which is a sound alike, like Mohammed, etc., sounding alike, and it could be something. I don't know if it's difficult to implement. I have no idea, but to add a kind of a matching sound alike thing that will, if you have two different languages or two different alphabets, it sounds alike, so it might match as well. But it's maybe very particular. I don't know, but that's an
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, that's something that I think we can, bake in as a separate feature and let people decide if they really want to use that. Yes, that's a good suggestion as well. Cool. So thank you so much. I think anybody else wants to have, say something or right? So I think,
Sonal?
yeah. Yes, please.
Just saying thanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thank you so much. I think Jimmy and Jerome, both of you, for putting this together, and Luke for all your help always, and the rest of you for joining us and being around and cheering us up. So please, as always, let us know on Slack if you need any help or support with Zing. And please keep coming up with your features and your requests or your bugs and whatever issues you keep seeing with Zing, and we'll try and really improve it as we go. Right. Thank you so much for your time today, and have a great weekend.
Thanks very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.